Hi guys, so we are in Unit 2, the last lesson in this unit, Lesson 5. We're going over resource management and power. And this is a pretty lengthy article, so I'm just going to skim through some of the important parts, and I would like for you to read it on your own time. I don't want to bore you by reading these to you. I just want to hit the main points. It's the goal of these recorded sessions. So remember, any bold words, those are going to be vocab words, and those are very important to know because you're going to see those pop up in your unit quizzes. So make sure you take a note of those. So the first one we have is best management practices, or BMPs. And those are just really effective and practical ways to prevent or reduce the amount of pollution in water, surface water, groundwater, and land management. So basically the best way to protect the environment in water, groundwater, and land. So whether you're managing forest, farmland, livestock, or even in the city, there are BMPs that you can use to prevent pollution in water systems. And remember, when we talked about aquatic life and water, remember, any kind of pollution can seep into the water, so that's why it's so important. And every organism is going to need water. That's why it's so important we keep it clean the best that we can. So for agriculture, they've got some conservation tillage. So that's leaving harvested plant materials. So we talked about, when we talked about the Dust Bowl, they tilled the soil too much, so they turned it over too much. There was nothing in the ground to hold that soil in. So leaving ground cover crops. Cover crops can be grass, something small, clover, and that's going to keep soil from eroding. Crop nutrient management. So making sure plants have enough nutrients. That's going to keep nutrients from running off of it. Pest management. So managing pests, but using it the right way, not using those outdated chemicals or anything like that, making sure you're using the right chemical for the right pest. Conservation buffers, using strips of vegetation as barriers to prevent pollutants from running off into surface water. So this could be making a big berm out of soil to protect. In landfills, they do this a lot. They use dirt to protect all of the pollutants to run into surface water. Irrigation management. Remember, irrigation has to do with water. Increasing efficiency of irrigation systems. So that way nothing can get in the piping system or nothing comes out. It's a good way to protect groundwater. Grazing management. Handling grazing of livestock to lessen water quality impacts. So those livestock, they have to go to the restroom somewhere. So helping to prevent that is a good way. Animal feeding operation management. Using proper waste storage, runoff control, and nutrient management. And then erosion and sediment control. Reducing the amount of sediment. So sediment is just all that, think of sand. Like it's just rock and sand and a bunch of stuff that's going to get into the water and because of erosion. And it actually causes bodies of water to get smaller because sediment builds up. So reducing that amount of sediment that reaches the water bodies protects land and water quality. So those are BMPs. Remember, that is just best management practice. So it just talks about, whatever the problem. It mentions like raccoons running amok in Japan, taking over. And my sister lives in Japan, so I'm going to have to ask her that. So whatever the problem, agri-scientists, they're here to help it. And they're here to work together with other scientists. So it says like the Japan raccoon problem. Germany had a similar one. So they got German biologists and wildlife experts to help wrangle the raccoons. Even with this, like you couldn't go out and just kill all the raccoons or trap all of them. Everything works together is what they really want you to get out of this unit. So whatever you do affects another species. So that's why it's important we research and we do our best practices to not affect the other environment to solve the problem. So another word for you, biologists, they don't just have to deal with animals, they deal with plants as well, which is botany. Botany is the study of plants. You can go to college and you can become a botanist. It's essential to managing natural resources as well. Chemistry, talks about is another major science. If you want to deal with animals or living things, you're probably going to have to take some chemistry classes. And environmental scientists, wherever you go to college, they're probably going to offer some sort of environmental science course. And that would be beneficial if you're going to be any kind of biologist or working with animals. Then it goes on and talks about renewable and non-renewable resources. Hopefully this is a review. I believe you should learn about renewable and non-renewable in like 5th grade. So they're divided in 2 categories. Renewable, you can make more of it, renew. Non-renewable, there's a finite amount. So when it's gone, it's gone. So oil is a really good example of a non-renewable resource. Okay, so renewable resources include human-made. So like fertilizer could be made from rock, became a renewable resource because more could be manufactured. Topsoil is non-renewable. So when it goes away, it can't be easily retrieved or replaced. Fossil fuels, such as oil, they are non-renewable. So we need to protect and use as little non-renewable as possible because whenever we use it up, that's it. It's gone. So, and there's certain ways that we can protect that, like they're coming up with new cars that can run not on oil. And Agriscience talks about planting crops to retain that topsoil is a good way of protecting that non-renewable resources. And it says renewable or conserved as well. We don't want to waste. We don't want to overproduce. So we want to conserve, and that's when it talks about recycling is really important. Repurposing different items. So they've got like a TV cart that uses a dog bed. Conservation. So if any of you remember whenever it was really cold in ERCOT, they shut down the power. That was horrible because they were having to conserve the heat and the power because all of Texas was so cold, we were overusing the power grid. So conserving it is really important. Leave your lights off during the day. Transportation, taking public transportation, carpooling, that's a great way to conserve. That guy's riding his bike. Going local, eating what local farmers produce not only helps the money you spend stay in your community, but it cuts down on pollution created from the big trucks getting it to Walmart. Local farmers, they're right in your community, so they're not having as much of a carbon footprint. Okay, so that talks about power. Power sources are another area where resources play a role. Oil and coal are non-renewable, but solar power, power from the sun, or wind power are renewable. Okay, because we're always getting more solar and we're always getting more wind. So ag is concerned with what goes into land and water. These kinds of clean energy sources are really beneficial. And so it talks about how the United States is trying to move more towards that. Here's another vocab word, biofuels. So that is energy sources made from biological matter. So oil is a biofuel because it's made from fossilized plants and animals, but it takes centuries to make those. There are different types of biofuels. Common one right here is ethanol. If you've gone to the gas pump, you may notice ethanol, especially in like the Midwest states where there's a lot of corn, ethanol is an option. So that's oil made from distilled grains, so corn, barley, and wheat. These grains also are used to make alcohol, and fuel is kind of made through the similar process. Ethanol is mixed with gasoline, and it cuts down on the amount of oil that we need for cars. There are cars that run entirely on ethanol, so entirely on plants. So that's really neat that we can do that. While it seems promising, farming is not without environmental consequences, so we still have to farm and get that corn, and so we're still kind of affecting the environment that way. So another way ag products can be directly translated into energy is biogas in cogeneration process. So biogas is a gas mixture of methane and carbon dioxide. By decomposing organic matter used fuel. Sounds really complicated. It just means that when certain kinds of plants break down, they produce methane and carbon dioxide, and that creates a source of fuel. Cogeneration is a process in which gas is used to both electrical and thermal energy. So the process of creating electricity makes heat. Cogeneration recovers that heat and uses it for things like heating water. So that's using things that are already there is a great way to conserve. So there are a lot of different benefits, a lot of things that are in the works to help us. There's small things that you can do, like turning off your light